Hello and welcome to Hot Indonesia, where you get what everyone's talking about in one go. I'm Dalton Tanonaka in Jakarta. Here is this week's H-I Hotlist. Racism report. The burning issue in America. Is Indonesia immune? Mall mentality. Shopping centers have reopened after the coronavirus shutdown. Is everyone happy? We talk with Danny Crayton of the country's biggest mall operator, Lippo. And graduation day, how this milestone event was made even more special for one Indonesian student in Washington, D.C. Now, here are my fantastic co-hosts each and every week. Sandrina Malakiano, former TV news anchor, now a political marketing consultant from her home in South Tangerang. And Sandiaga Uno, business executive and former vice governor of Jakarta from his home in South Jakarta. Here's hot topic number one, racism report. Another week, another racially charged death in the United States. This time in Atlanta on June 12th, a black man, Rayshard Brooks, was shot and killed by a white police officer as he was running away during an attempted arrest. His apparent violation was sleeping in his car at a drive-in restaurant. Outrage and protests followed again, continuing the anger over previous killings. Now, you know, guys, America is supposed to be the land of liberty and justice, but as an American, I am feeling pretty shaken up by what's going on there. Now, looking on as Indonesians, what are you both seeing? First, Sandy?
Well, outbursts of violence have a really long story in Indonesia. We have a word, run amok. Amok comes from the Javanese word of amuk, means outburst of anger. And well, thank God the scale and frequency is declining. And I think democracy, freedom of speech, and some peacekeeping efforts by community leaders as well as by the government and the top leaders of the country somehow strengthening our national fabric. And we have the Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, which is the united in diversity. Unity in diversity is really putting everybody together, and Pancasila as the foundations of the country, really the third article, which is United Indonesia, have kept Indonesia pretty much in a much better shape. But this current pandemic, this COVID-19, have caused some people losing jobs, economy coming down, and people having their incomes dropping, and while their cost of living is increasing, price of food is increasing, and this is causing inequalities, and this is basically the embryo of social unrest. So we need to be very, very careful.
Sandy, the issue of racism didn't stem from just COVID-19 in America. My point is, it's a systemic, long-running issue, and we'll talk more about this. But Sandrina, my question was really, what do you make of what's going on in America? Does it look strange to you? Are you surprised by it?
Honestly, I am not, because as you have just mentioned, it's been ongoing forever and ever. It's a long time thing, similar to what's happened in Indonesia, because for me, in my opinion, Indonesia is one of the most tolerant and diverse country in the world, because here the freedom to practice religious teachings and rituals are guaranteed by the Constitution. All the religions have their holidays celebrated as national holidays, but discrimination has been an issue here since the colonial era. Discriminations against people of Chinese descent, for example, has been going on since the 1700s even. And during the New Order era, it has been even made more restricted with laws issued by the government during Suharto's presidency. And fortunately, that has been ruled out and been changed by the following presidents, starting from B.J. Habibie, Abdurrahman Wahid onwards. But we know also, like last year, there has been discriminations against Papuan students, university students in Surabaya, People from the Chinese ethnicity here also have continued to be victimized by racism and discrimination issues.
Okay, but
Non-Muslims also. It's not a new thing.
Sanjita, let me point out a difference. I think the history of black-white relations in the U.S. Of course, stem from slavery. Nothing like that happened in Indonesia, except if you mention what you talked about, colonialization by the Dutch.
No, but also in relations to that.
Let me finish my point. Wouldn't you say that the problems here, any conflicts between races here, are more economic-based than racial? I mean, you mentioned Chinese, you mentioned Papuans. Maybe there's resentment against Chinese because the haves versus the have-nots. And in the case of Papua, they don't have anything, so they're fighting against the people who have. Is that fair to say that here it's more economic-based than race, as in the U.S.?
50-50, in my opinion, because yes, economically also in Indonesia, the huge conglomerates are from a certain group, but that is not the main issue, because even the Indonesians also are doing pretty well, except for those, for example, in the eastern part of Indonesia. People from the eastern part of Indonesia, as you mentioned, they are less developed, they are less fortunate than those who are in Java or in Sumatra. But the people's perception towards people from eastern Indonesia is not based on economic issues.
Color of the skin?
Yes, that has been happening here too.
Okay. Sandy, let me ask you this. There were protests around the world these past few weeks supporting the Black Lives Matter group, which is spearheading all of the anger in America, but no protests here. What does that say?
Well, here the issue, I think, in the U.S., nearly 40% of Black Americans live in the area whereby there is the highest risk of health and economic disruptions. Here in Indonesia, we have our own issues now, and I think as people are watching the news at a completely, mind-boggling footage coming out from the American coverage. We have our own issues here, and with the pandemic, people are just busy in the social media side, but going onto the streets with the large-scale social restrictions, I don't think it is high in people's agenda now.
Okay, Hot Indo will continue shortly with mall mentality. Is the reopening going well in these popular family destinations? You're watching Hot Indonesia with Sandrina, Sandy, and me. Here's hot topic number 2, mall mentality. Monday marked the reopening of some 80 malls throughout Jakarta after the coronavirus threat closed them for 3 months. For many families in the capital, malls are not just a place to shop, but to eat, watch movies, and just hang out in a clean, cool space. So many people, including me, welcome the reopening of these malls. Now, Danny Crayton is Chief Marketing Officer of the country's largest operator of malls, Lippo, with 66 properties throughout the archipelago. Sir, thank you very much for joining us. Briefly, sir, how is the reopening going this week? What were the crowds? What kind of response you got?
We had over 85% of our tenants reopened with us. Some of the additional tenants will open the next few days as we go forward, of course. But we've been very pleased with it. Traffic is as expected and continues to build throughout the day. Yesterday, of course, we track it by hour, and last night was quite strong as well.
Briefly, what are the health protocols in your malls?
From the first visit to the mall, when you come into entrance, of course, we check your temperature. We have a large screen that monitors the traffic in and out and also registers your temperature as well. Masks are required and sanitation is required. Also, hand washing is required as well. When you come into the mall, you'll see reminders throughout various areas, from the escalators, steps, remind to keep social distance in there as well. Also on the lifts now, you will not see the buttons. You'll see a foot pedal or a hand sensor where it's touchless. You'll see hand sanitation throughout various areas. You'll see the toilets closed off, about 50% of those in the sinks as well. Also in the food areas, you'll see social distance in there, areas blocked off, seating blocked off, to ensure that social distancing does occur.
Yeah, I guess these procedures are present in most of the malls throughout Jakarta area. You're using technology a bit more than others. Sandy, question for Danny, please.
New segment, Danny, of health-conscious mall goers emerge, and you mentioned about adding hand wash stations. You're adding new protocol and other features that become now like part of the new normal. You will see increase in costs, and it is tough time to pass the cost to your mall goers or to the customers or to the tenants. What type of policies that you would now be in need coming from the government, because you guys are also jobs creator. You provide jobs that is badly needed in this economic situations, Danny.
Number one, the additional cost obviously is a necessity, and we do not refer to the new normal as, I don't think any of us really know what the new normal is going to be in the future. So what we do is a new safety lifestyle, because this will impact our lifestyle as we go forward, regardless of what location we're in, if it's a mall or another facility and so forth. So it's all about the safety. As far as the additional costs, there are some additional costs there, of course, but they are costs that are required. It would be wonderful, of course, to get some kind of support from the government, but this time we obviously are not dependent upon that. We get our revenue, of course, from our tenants for rental and service charges.
Sandrina, question?
Yeah. Danny, it's good to know that your malls are back in business right now, but are you implementing certain precautions or steps like a tracking system to enable your party to find out and track your visitors should there be a positive case maybe in one of your outlets or the staffs of your tenants? And what would you do if there is a positive case found in one of your malls, in one of the tenants?
We've been working on these new lifestyle changes, of course, for the last 3 or 4 months. And one of the first initial stages of this new safety standards was what happens if we do have a case in one of our locations. It's not just inside our mall with our staff, but also, of course, with our tenants. So we've got strong protocols in place also. Every employee, every tenant we have must sign a health declaration based on their movement, their travel, and so forth. Based on that, we will determine if they can report the duty or not. Also, all of our mall management has been trained by health professionals on the symptoms of what to look for in the case that someone's got a runny nose, there's a high temperature, etc., and those people are removed immediately. The people that have been working with them are removed and placed in quarantine for a minimum of 14 days. Also, we've worked with our tenants extensively. We've tested over 4,000 tenant employees last week, and again this week. We continue to test them as well as our employees, based on that health declaration. So if someone is positive, they are removed. Now, back to your question on our customers. How do we contact our customers? When a customer comes into the mall, we have a QR code where the customer can download our Styles app, our loyalty program. Based on that and the transactional history, we identify where they have been, locations and so forth, and we can contact them in the case there has been an outbreak in one of our malls. But obviously what we're using that for is not to more or less tracking, but it's to communicate the protocols, safety protocols.
Cool.
Okay, Danny, I mentioned earlier how intrinsic malls are in the lives of Jakarta residents and how popular they are. Obviously, the business impact of the shutdown was huge. I mean, you lost huge chunks of revenue this past 3 months. What are your projections for recovery going forward?
Well, as I said earlier, we've been quite pleased with the recovery this last couple of days. Of course, 2 days does not make a trend, but as we also know, Indonesians are very resilient. But this crisis, and I call it a crisis, obviously with COVID-19, is unique because in the past when Indonesia's had crisis, it's been an area with an earthquake, a volcano, and so forth. But this is unique, so it's impacted the entire country. But we anticipate that the recovery will continue to be slowly, of course. It's not going to be an immediate recovery, but we are very pleased with what we've seen the last couple of days. And I'll go back and also say that earlier we opened malls in Sumatra and other parts of Indonesia several weeks ago, and that recovery is coming at a pace that we're very pleased with. So we expect things to return as close to normal by late third, early fourth quarter.
Okay, Danny Crayton, good luck on your recovery there. Lippo Malls, Indonesia. Appreciate your time, sir. Thank you very much. More Hot Indo is ahead with Graduation Day. Why this year will be even more memorable for students abroad and here at home. You're watching Hot Indonesia from Jakarta. Here's hot topic number 3, Graduation Day. Because of global coronavirus restrictions, students around the world missed out on in-person graduation ceremonies, virtual exercises taking their place. But one Indonesian student in Washington had her special event.
If you're feeling a little lonely or dissatisfied with how conditions are right now, please stay strong. It's not the end of the world, and let's really get through all this.
Graduation here is not only for students, but also for their families. It's a big deal for their families. I think this a good tradition could be introduced in Indonesia.
And Theo is the father, as you saw. He is a diplomat in the Indonesian embassy in D.C. The proud father saying that his video represents all the kids graduating overseas. Sandy, your daughters are attending university in the U.S. as well. Did you have a graduation?
Well, congratulations first to Theo and all Indonesian students everywhere around the world graduating in this COVID-19 era. Well, my daughter Anisha Atira just graduated earlier also, 1st of May, and it was done through a Zoom meeting. But I feel that her graduations become very personally meaningful. We have this COVID-19 graduates that family are surrounding and more globally connected. We didn't make the travel to Boston because of the pandemic, obviously, but health and environmentally conscious and more straightforward. I guess it's very efficient, and students have story to tell.
Yeah, but I'm sure you wish you could have been there to hug her, and you'll do that when you see her next. Now, Sandrina, your daughter had a similar virtual experience, but here in Indonesia, right?
Right, both of my daughters actually are graduating this year. One already graduated virtually, the other one will be graduating from elementary school. The elder sister had a virtual graduation. Of course, it's far from ideal. Schools are trying to adapt and come up with creative ways. But still, as you mentioned, it should be really memorable. Above all else, also, I would like to congratulate all class of 2020 for graduating either from university, from high school, from elementary school. Of course, it's different, but it's because you're meant to stand out.
Yeah, this will be a year everyone will remember. But one thing, I didn't know you had graduation of elementary school.
We do.
When I grew up, we just went to the next grade. We didn't walk around in caps and gowns.
We do.
Yeah. Well, that's a new thing. Okay, my congratulations to all graduates around the world. It is feedback time, and we want to hear from you. We like hearing from you, and we have some questions from people around the world. First, Adia posted this on our Indonesia channel YouTube page. He asks, how many Hot Indonesia episodes have aired? Well, since we relaunched last year with our new look and my new partners, we have done a total of 38 programs. That's a lot. Keep watching, Adia. And this from Rintis. Please use Indonesian subtitles. Well, Rintis, if you go to the YouTube page of our partner TV1, you will find our program with subtitles. Here's how to contact us with your feedback. Email at hotindo@theindonesiachannel.com. We'll give you a t-shirt if you read your email on the air, or comment through our Hot Indonesia or Indonesia channel, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube pages. Final words, Sandrina.
Yes, as we discussed about racism, discrimination, the first segment, I completely agree with a quote by American political analyst or activist Angela Davis. She quoted, "In a racist society, it is not enough to be non-racist. We have to be anti-racist." Me personally, I'm of the opinion that all people, no matter what ethnicity, race, or religion, deserve equal treatment. There is only one race, the human race. So let's recognize, accept, and embrace, celebrate our differences with love and respect.
Final words, Sandy.
Well, I've been very, very fortunate. I was educated in a predominantly Christian Protestant school. I went to a public junior high school and senior high school. I spent time with my predominantly Catholic and Chinese high school friends. And I've got a very diverse education's background. And truly, this Indonesia has blessing in Pancasila and Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. So let's make sure that we embrace Pancasila and Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, and we continue to make sure our strong national fabrics, unity in diversity, stay intact, and we make sure also we don't go into these racial tensions as we see in other parts of the world.
Okay, and my final words. Parliament and the public are asking questions about the light one-year sentence requested in the case of former corruption investigator Novel Baswedan. He was blinded in one eye in an acid attack 3 years ago while working on cases against politicians and police. The two police officers charged in this case now face less prison time than a marijuana smoker. Mr. Baswedan is permanently disabled. Justice must not be blind as well. And that is Hot Indonesia for this week. For Sandrina Malakiano and Sandiaga Uno, I'm Dalton Tanonaka. Thank you for watching, and see you again next time.